And Duane has been working with two technicians for sustainability as a solar installer. He's been studying energy before that began. He has background working in nonviolent interventions, nonviolent resistance, nonviolent change in other countries. He's a man with deep roots in the heart, in the land, and in the spirit. So we're really looking forward to that. Before he begins, at about 5 to 6, we will be sharing with you just a little bit of update on what's happening with Sustainable Tucson. And several committee leaders have prepared either a short little 1-2 minute talk or a little video about their projects with opportunities for you to get involved. There's some very interesting activities going on. So with that said, Duane, I would love to hear from you about Electrifying Tucson. I believe Trace may have made you already able to share.
Yeah, we're set up for that, Stuart. Just wanted to say that I will be monitoring the chat when we get to that point and looking for questions that people have.
Thank you, Trace. Right, Duane.
Unmute first would be good. Let me share my screen. And that's probably not the screen that we want right now. How about this one? Does that show up? The blue with blue background? Yes, okay. All right. Well, welcome to electrification as a way to democratize climate action. It's really an exciting time, really a time when we can do actions that don't require top-down decision making. We can have a part of this from where we are in our homes and our workplaces. And this talk is really going to be pretty practical oriented. So other times I've focused more on the big picture climate issues. I'm going to kind of stick more now to just electrification as a way of dealing with that situation. If somebody has a noise going on, you might want to check if you need to be put your mic on mute. All right, so let me see if I can, yes, can everybody see that, or are the letters on the right side blocked by something? Can you read everything?
By the pictures, by the videos.
Yeah, I don't know what I can do about that. Let's try this. Okay, I think that might work better. So 3 basic steps to energy transformation. And this is the phrase that I have chosen for the working group that is now a 2-person group and ready for more. Energy transformation to do the maximum that we can do in a short time frame to mitigate climate change. And the 3 steps that I've identified are electrify, that is replacing all of our fossil fuel burning or requiring things in our lives with electric, and then, or simultaneously, get renewable energy to power those things, and then start to adjust our rhythms to living in a way that makes sense in this new energy environment. So one of the resources that really turned me on to this kind of simplified understanding, or straightforward understanding, or at least, how do you say it, prioritized, is the Rewiring America Field Manual. And Saul Griffith is at the center of that. He has some co-authors with him. And this is a resource that's available online. You have the websites here on the bottom, rewiringamerica.org. You can get the PDF and read it. It's kind of like a short, like a handbook. It's what it is, field manual handbook. And so it's really about what I just said, electrifying everything, adopting energies that are decarbonized, and really don't sweat the small stuff at the first. Just think of the big things that that have us in the trench of battle against fossil fuels. And then financing is, of course, a big issue for most people, many people. And then there's some other terms that I will just kind of leave for your perusal of these materials later. I'm going to try to kind of keep this whole thing short. I think we've allotted 45 minutes for presentation with Q&A. If it doesn't take that long, that's great. And we can either shorten our meeting or have a little more time to celebrate and look forward into next year's possibilities. I just took this clip from last Friday's newspaper here. And it's not directly, it is about climate change. It's not so much about electrification, but it shares a common perspective on things. And here, Megan Carney, who's the director of the U of A's Center for Regional Food Studies, shows how policy and government decision makers, especially at the national level, are not going to get us where we need to go. We need to take action to do things in the time that is allotted. And unfortunately, in the energy sector, we have that ability to make big gains in that area. Getting down to the next layer of detail on what electrification looks like. I've kind of divided it into residential, commercial, industrial, transportation, and then some of the efficiency gains that are a part of this. So it's about the big things: the furnace, space heating, water heating, stove, laundry. That's kind of the big in a lot of people's lives. The swimming pool associated stuff might be in there for some. We don't have a swimming pool, so I'm not so well, I don't think about that so much. Commercial, industrial, similar. There's a little bit more of a role for getting a daytime EV charging to be a part of that, since people often work during the day and that's when the sun shines. And if we're going in this route of electrification and renewing energy, then in Arizona, at least, daytime is the best time for charging EVs. Then there's more specific information on transportation. And I don't want you to get to think that you need this slide set or you need to take ample notes, because all of this information has been posted on the Sustainable Tucson website. If you saw that, there was a link in the announcement for this meeting about that. And so you can have access to a lot more details. So this is a map of a coming energy transmission project. It's been in the works since 2005 and it's expected to be completed in about another 3 years. And it's really about getting wind power from Wyoming, which has a great wind resource, especially compared to Arizona, or our part of Arizona. And not only may it serve us, at least among in the region here where service is going to be shared with that wind energy, but it'll also give us a way, if we overbuild our solar, which we have ways to do to get there, but I hope we get there, then that same transmission line can carry that up where it's needed during the day to Wyoming and other rocky destinations. The little graph in the middle here is a little bit disappointing in terms of dealing with our peak usage, because as you can see, the peak production of wind in Wyoming is in the winter, and its nadir, or the low point, is July, August, and September. So we're still going to have to develop batteries to store our solar in order to get through those summer evenings. Excuse me. This is just a look at this very timely situation we're in for space heating. Rewiring America, the same outfit that came up with that, had a report out that is just this month about energy bill security. And it's talking about, in the US as a whole, the cost of home heating by gas is going up $160, by propane $500. And if you have an electric heat pump, the cost increase for heating your home this summer will be, in the US, $21. And the figures below that are for the Southwest region. We have obviously a lot less winter heat expense here than a lot of places do. And that's the reason for that, although the propane is still way up there. Transportation. Transportation, obviously, we're seeing this at those who still drive fossil fuel cars, which I count myself among them, especially for work, know that gasoline prices have gone up. But the cost of charging your electric vehicle is expected only to go up a very much smaller amount. And basically, this is a function of price volatility being much higher in the fossil fuel area than it is for electricity. So heat pumps. I know we have among us here people who are very well versed in this. Robert is probably more well versed than I am, but this is just to scratch the surface here. A heat pump is basically an air conditioner that works in both directions. And they're coming in more and more shapes and sizes, configurations. There are some that you can charge, that you can put the energy in directly from solar panels without turning the DC into AC first, and without being connected. That being, even though you might have a grid connected home, you can have off-grid solar powering your heat pump during the day, at least. So there's really an explosion of types of systems that fit a variety of household circumstances. And these are 3.5 to 4 times as efficient as resistance heat. So their heat pumps have been around for a long time, but the technology used now has improved a great deal. And so I think when heat pumps first came out, people had impressions that have stuck, and get the belief that they don't heat well enough, or there's different reasons not to like them. But in fact, they are really a way to go. And in our house, for instance, when we got a heat pump to both heat and cool our house, we got a new closet out of the deal. The furnace went away, and we had suddenly more closet space. So, all right, then heat pumps, that the concept, the technology now has been extended to water heaters. And I'm going to show you a little video about an installation of one of these that I just completed. And I know Robert also is familiar with this. It has a little, I'm going to say, air conditioner on top. It's a compressor, a heat pump, and it uses that to heat the water. And as a result, instead of sending up greenhouse gases out the flue with a gas water heater, you are sending out cooled air, cooled clean air that went through the top half of this top third of this unit. And if that air can be ducted inside, you've got yourself some air conditioning. All right, there are also, these units are not as cheap as a traditional water heater, but within about 3 years' time, they have become cheaper. In other words, the payback on your energy savings will result in a money savings within a few years. Get a little water in my throat. And there are right now, I'm going to go to a part of the web page on Sustainable Tucson that talks about the financial incentives available for this. So I'm not going to go into detail about that just yet. But here's an example of the same unit that I just installed. It's a Ream product, and it's a 40-gallon and 30 amp circuit, and you can get that for $1,330. I think that includes shipping. You can also get them at Home Depot and Lowe's and other places for a slightly higher price. All right, so I'm going to see whether I can play this video here.
This heat pump water heater replaced a gas water heater. It fit in the same size closet, but had to be replumbed because the water inlet and outlet are on the sides instead of the top. From here up is where the compressor is, the heat pump, which separates heat from cold just from the ambient air, and sends the heat to the water, of course, and cold air comes out here. During the summer, we may duct this into the building to add to our cooling capacity.
Okay, just to get you a vision of what it looks like, and it looks like pretty much like any other water heater. But before we go here, though, I want to mention that another advantage of a heat pump water heater is that you can program it to heat when you want and not heat when you don't want. So if you have solar, you can have it heat during the day and carry that heat through the night, but not necessarily consume more electricity when you're not producing. Or if you don't have solar and you want to heat it overnight, because that's when demand is lowest, you can set it up for that as well. Right. Then just a mention here of EVs. I'm sure that anybody who drives anything in Tucson has been seeing a lot of electric cars out there. Not all of them shout, "I'm an electric car," but of course all the Teslas are, and they're some of the most iconic and as well as widespread. But Ford and other makers are really getting ready to get their capacity much higher than they thought they would have to, because the demand is as high as it is. I mean, these numbers are going higher than any projections that were there for the quite short term. At this point, I'm going to take you to a few of the pages that are up on Sustainable Tucson's website, just to get you a flavor. See if I can get there. Can you see that page? I think I'm showing my screen properly. So it's pretty much outlined similar to this talk, but you got the electrify everything, renew our energy supply, which I'm really focusing on the electrify part in this presentation tonight, but kind of with that, getting the renewable energy in there and then adjusting ourselves to how that works. So I talked about incentives, and there's on the website here, there are, for example, here is for if you get a heat pump for your house, TEP will give you a $900 rebate for a heat pump installed if it's the early retirement of an old system. Well, what does that mean? Why would they give $900 for an early retirement of an old system as opposed to $650? The presumption, I think, here is that you have your system has broken down and needs to be replaced, and therefore you're in an emergency mode. And it's much harder to make an intelligent decision about replacing a furnace or heating system when it's an emergency. So they are encouraging us by giving us more incentive to, they don't want us to replace a new system necessarily, but an old system that is still working. And also you get a federal $300 tax credit for a heat pump. Now I understand that there's a lot in flux right now at the federal level. And if I read what I read correctly, actually the incentives that are out there for this nature of things federally are set to expire in 2 weeks at the end of this year. So we need to watch and see. Congress has got to do something. I know they will do something. I don't know how it will come out. So then there's more here on heat pump water heaters. There are transportation incentives, and I'm going to take you to a couple of those just to give an example. Here's where on TEP says they will give you, residential customers can receive a $400 rebate for the purchase and installation of a heat pump water heater. EV rebates. TEP will give up to $500 for EV charger, and you might get a little less than that if you get one that doesn't have as high an amperage. I went ahead and installed one of these at my home, not knowing this was available, as I think most people don't. I could have got $200 because mine's 30 amps. Actually, it's 40 amps. I could have got $300. Now I only paid about $500 for the thing. So, well, I paid more because I had to put some wiring to it. But anyway, that, and then, well, let's say for your workplace, what about charging? You can see TEP has some really generous support for putting a level 2 charger in a multifamily complex, nonprofit, in a commercial business. You can get $6,000 up to 75% of a project cost for installing a car charger. That's pretty generous. I don't know how long they're going to do that, but it's good to know that this is an option. And look at this: if you are in a disadvantaged community, excuse me, that's the disadvantaged community price. Otherwise, $4,500. $6,000 if it's a multifamily or nonprofit, and $9,000 if it's a multifamily or nonprofit in a disadvantaged community. So DC fast chargers have, again, a multiple times higher amount available to cover up to 3/4 the cost of a project. So I think if anybody is in a position of even knowing somebody who might want to do this, I would put it out there to them, because I think that the reason that TEP can do this is because we're so early in the game of installing these systems that they can offer this much money because nobody's really, the fish aren't biting yet. So let's get some fish on those lures. All right, so that pretty much is where I want to go with that. Back to here. And community choice energy. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but we do have Energy Choice Tucson has a person here tonight, and whoa, in the meeting who can follow up with you on becoming a part of this effort to get community choice energy. And the basic idea is this is a model that is working currently in a dozen states in the United States and is having very good success at keeping energy prices at or below utility prices, and greater amounts of renewable energy are being put on the grid because of it. It keeps the benefits local, it keeps the decision-making local, and the idea is that it gives the city or county or a union of cities and counties that come together to create a CCE the ability to decide what energy sources will go into the energy mix for their jurisdictions. And I think that's all. I'm going to leave that there and let you follow up later with that. We can have a hand raised about details on that after I'm finished with this. Now, this is a bit more of a kind of a social construct that I want to promote and get you thinking about. Find a place in you that wants to reach out, that is so convinced that if we just put our mind to it, we can do huge things bigger than what we're doing in terms of climate. So have conversations and talk about electrification, talk about what are, there's a lot of people that have been rethinking, what am I doing with my work life? Why should I continue to do this thing? And the people have quit and they're still trying to figure out what's next. And I work in a place where I get to be outside all the time. I'm putting renewable energy on roofs, and still I don't know how people can stay away from joining me in wanting to do this work. But we have been trying to hire people for all through COVID, basically. And we haven't been able to hire enough. And as a result, we have people who come to us, to Technicians for Sustainability now, and we can't install them until September of 2022. That's how far behind we are. So join us, and it's great. It's great that we're getting that attention and work, and that the need is there. And it would be greater if there were people that were thinking about, oh, I want to dedicate my life to that. It might be young people, it might be older people. So no more, that's my sermon for tonight. But think about talking about it with people you know. Think about thinking about it for yourself, or okay, good enough. This is now getting into the aspirational vision for the Energy Transformation Working Group. I discovered an Electrify Everything Portland, Maine program. And I said, okay, that sounds great. Let's do Electrify Everything Tucson. The city of Portland, Maine is involved in this. And I think the city of Tucson would be receptive to the idea. It's pretty much using a variety of methods and instruments to reach the goals of electrification that I have been talking about here. And the city gets involved. Of course, that could take a number of shapes, and it might be different here than it would be in Portland, Maine. But I don't have the bandwidth to put together proposals and bring them to the right people. So if this kind of idea or others in this realm is something that you that you would like to be involved in, and you could think about joining me in the Energy Transformation Working Group. And my email is there, Duane@sustainabletucson.org. I've even put my phone number there. And as long as you don't say that you're offering me long-term auto insurance, I will take your call. All right, is that the end of my show? I think it must be.
Well, Duane,
And I hope I didn't go too long. Did I go? I didn't go too long. I left some room for question and answer and dreaming and visioning.
we've got lots of questions, I'm sure. Maybe I can seed the questions feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat if you'd like to get called on that way. But Duane, first of all, how can we prevent exploiters and profiteers from taking control of an electrical energy system just as they've taken control of other energy systems in the past? How do we keep?
Well, you can't, I think you can't do that except by becoming, except by deciding that I'm not going to be what society tells me I am, which is a consumer. I'm going to be a human. I'm going to say I can produce as well as consume. I can share as well as want more and more just for me. So I would say that's the two parts of where my answer is. It's an attitude thing and a hands-on creating the democratized energy grid that is already taking shape in many places in the world.
Wayne, I've got a concern about this whole issue, and that's that we may have a situation where the electrical supply could fail. And if that's for a few hours, it's not a big deal. But if it's a prolonged shortage, if everything's electrical, we've got a problem.
I don't know. Yes, it may be that in the transition to a transformed energy system, that may be more likely. And I wonder, I don't know. Well, here's the thing. If to the extent that it is decentralized, then to that extent, we are less dependent upon one institution, one utility of getting the energy to the people that need it. When we have the production distributed to an extent that we don't yet, then when the grid goes down, we in neighborhoods, in parts of neighborhoods, we still will have microgrids that provide energy locally, and that's a long-term thing to get there in some ways, but it's also an organically growing model for I think where we want to be headed.
Well, some comments on that. There's some key things that are not currently backed up in an effective way that would be very important not to lose, like water. Rather than trying to electrify everything simultaneously, it might be worth considering approaching TEP and saying, we want a secure water supply, put in distributed solar with battery storage at the 300 and whatever water pumps that the city has, and all of a sudden you have a guaranteed water supply.
As long as the sun shines.
Yes, and in addition, TEP has a few days worth of water in the reservoirs, so that we would be good for a little while. How long we could go before generators would be needed to keep the pumping of the water is to get it up into the reservoir so it can flow into our houses.
I would say that we're entering there into a problem that is very real for our region, and that is tangentially connected, but not directly connected to the topic tonight. So I respect it, and I think that actually, when we electrify, we also get the benefit of water, or not get the benefit. We need to focus on water conservation. This is obviously very timely right now. We're seeing the lakes, the Colorado supplies going down and not envisioned to be increasing. We're in an unsustainable place with that, and that's a bigger question for us. So
We got a lot of questions coming up. I'm not
go for it.
remembering who was
Too
first,
many?
but I want to make sure Ben had a reaction to that question. With that, if we're staying on topic, Ben, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Basically, I first of all, this is the latest thing from Sal Griffith, Electrify, and it's a great book. And I've read it cover to cover, and it covers so much and answers probably so many questions that some of us are going to have tonight. Just want to say that when you electrify everything, you're still getting your power source from somewhere. And I mentioned in the discussion, solar, wind, there's battery backup there, there's biomass, there's nuclear. These are all sources of electrification. And currently we burn fossil fuels for electricity. And Sal's main point is that's the part you want to eliminate. So that's basically the point.
Thank you, Ben. And Bruce, did you want to tag on to that?
Yeah, I just posted that. I just got through reading that book too. It's available at the library. I finished. I'll take that copy back tomorrow. So it'll be available for folks, but it really is a good book. I wanted to also say that the city of Tucson has an emergency plan for a lot of different city services and so forth. And at one point, some years ago, when I worked for the city, there was an effort to try to get some of the emergency things at various city facilities, like some gas pumping places and possibly even some water pumping places powered by solar. Most of them now have diesel generators that'll run for 24, 48, or 72 hours. But there's an opportunity for people that are concerned, like Trace, that are concerned in this emergency disaster situation to get involved with the city and their emergency planning to try to work through some of those things. And it may turn out that the at least short-term solution is to have solar and batteries available to run those items, at least for city facilities, including stoplights and so forth. And if you need to, keep some of the fossil fuel things as a backup on a short-term basis. But there's the possibility of doing that through the city. The last thing I want to say is that many of the things people brought up tonight seem to me to relate to the city's climate action plan. And I don't think I heard Duane talking about that, but I'd be interested in knowing if anybody really knows where that stands or how people might get involved in it, because the city's doing a lot of work, apparently has a consultant working on this, but many of the things people talked about would be in much better shape if the city's climate action plan was focused on electrification. I don't know the status of that, but if somebody does, they might share.
A quick comment, and Duane, jump in if I'm leaving something out. Sustainable Tucson committees under the leadership of Kevin Green, who's here tonight, are preparing proposals to the city on certain aspects of the climate change plan. And I believe that Duane's effort to electrify is a great candidate to be among these proposals we're making there. It's not quite clear where they are. They did a lot of public input in the early part of this year through surveys that were circulated multiple times. And then they had a number of listening sessions where people either in person or on Zoom were asked some key questions and facilitators took notes, and those all went into it. But we haven't heard for a few months since all that closed. So watch this space. Robert, I think you had something. You've been waiting a while.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that any perceived resiliency coming from dual fuel sources, gas and electric, is largely illusory, because when the grid goes down, the gas system doesn't have pumps, and when the gas system goes down, your furnace, the two are interconnected in that really you're creating 2 points of failure. And that if you really want resiliency, the combination of distributed solar and storage just is way far ahead of everything else. I have both, and grid goes down, I don't even notice. And so, yes, we need, I think something like half of our city of Tucson water pumps are powered by fossil gas pumps. And so a grid failure is going to cause those to go out too, because they won't have pumps to pump the gas. And so just the answer to me is the combination of solar and storage in a distributed fashion. You got resiliency nailed.
Super. Did you have a question, Robert, or just wanted to share that? Okay, thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, I was just looking at the distributed storage. How much extra would I have to add to my solar system if I'm currently taking care of 100% or slightly above, if I put in a battery storage wall that would last me for 2 days, including running the air conditioner?
Yeah, the calculation there's a lot of variables in there, and what I can say is my solar is about 5 kilowatts of solar DC, and I have one Powerwall battery, which also can do 5 kilowatts, has 13.5 kilowatt hours. These numbers probably don't mean anything until you get into this a little bit, but one Powerwall per 5,000 watts of solar has gotten me to 97% covered.
Okay.
All 97% of the energy that we use in our house comes from our solar. That's not going to be the same for everybody, but yeah.
I was thinking in what Trace was talking about, an emergency situation where I had no grid.
You're going to want to cut down your usage at the time that the grid's not there. And so the extent that you can do that, you can make the battery last longer. Generally, they are installed in a fashion that 2 days probably is more than otherwise might be sensible to have. But if we can start using our EVs, which we are promised Ford's Lightning trucks will be able to power our house, those have a substantially greater amount of battery storage in them and can power a house for a week with relative ease. So there are more than one way of getting that need met.
Okay, and then the related question to the grid, I've been told by people who may have fossil fuel leaning tendencies that say that you can't get the battery capacity either by distributed or large grid up fast enough. What validity do they have in that?
It's a tough thing to aspire to, and I wish I had researched that question to be able to speak better to it. But I think we're at a place where we need to measure our needs and our planet's needs and figure out what works for all of us.
Ben, I saw you reacting to that question. Would you like to compliment what Duane said there? Ben Need?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, there's nothing faster than flipping a switch to get electricity. If something fails on the grid, you would think that what it would take to get one of those gas peaker plants up and running, and they're supposed to be relatively quick, would be like starting a car engine. But a backup battery, which could be the nominal replacement for a gas peaker plant, is instantaneous, just flicking a switch.
But there's true that let's say we had an outage that covered all of Tucson. To get the battery capacity to suddenly replace that need is we're way not even, you know, we're not a hair's breadth toward that, but we can get closer.
Isn't that why we want to have lots of solar roofs with battery backup?
That's one reason. Keep things distributed, and if you don't have it, your neighbor might have it. If the hospital has it, then the hospital can keep operating during an outage. I think most of the world, anybody of us who've traveled and lived in many parts of the world, know that outages can be a very routine thing in major cities in this world. And for us to expect that we will have outages 0.0 whatever % of the time, while others have to expect that they'll have energy maybe 4 hours a day all the time, we can question that.
Right. Well, Trace, I think you've got another question. Or do you?
You go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's actually for me. I'm wondering about efforts or what would be needed to effectively get a distributed production as much as possible with small neighborhood groups, perhaps, or other than just single rooftop solar with battery backup. Are there other efforts for ensuring that we get a widespread distributed system?
Nobody from the top down is working very hard for that. That's got to be from the bottom up. And so only it's happening in little places, and it's going to take some time and effort.
Duane, it's a technical question. Would you consider making your slideshow available for us to? There's a lot of. Or are you saying that's all on the website?
I can share it. I don't know how we would do that, but I could. You could contact me directly, and I can share it with you. Again, I would recommend that, yes, first go to sustainabletucson.org/energy/. And if you need something from the presentation that you don't find there, let me know, and I'll share the presentation, and I might put it on the site too.
Thank you.
The recording of this meeting will be linked to from the site.
Super. Now, Dan asked, I think going back to the issue of how we're pumping water, but he said, how would running the pumps with gas-fired pumps be any different from the gas generators they're currently powered with? So, Duane, if you feel that's just too off topic, we can save that for another time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a rhetorical question, so I'm just going to leave it.
Okay. All right, well, let's see who else. Duane, why are fossil fuel prices more volatile? When they become lesser dominant and the green sources become the dominant forms, will they be equally volatile?
I'm not an economist. I don't know the answer to that. But it was included in this report. If you follow up and read the report that I referred to by the Rewiring America folks, they probably had at least some clues in there. I think they just said it is more volatile. I don't think they necessarily said why. That's probably on their scope as well.
Robert, did you have a comment on that?
Yes, my answer would be that most renewable energy has near zero operating costs. All of the costs are in the capital production of the system to start with. So the costs are going to be spread out over 20 years, whatever it was, and you know it up front. Whereas fossil generation requires fuel, which varies with supply and demand and economic activities and all that kind of stuff. So, when you buy a solar system, you've guaranteed your price for the next 40 years.
I wonder if there is an ecological principle built in there. Going back to more particulars, you showed us the pictures of a heat pump before your little video, and there were two sort of AC looking things outdoors, and then there's something else. Were all of those heat pumps, or were they were
both heat pumps. One was that looked more like a traditional air conditioner, and a lot of the ones on our house, we have one on the roof, it looks more or less like that. The other kind is it's a mini split. It's ductless, so it can be installed. It probably will not cool a whole house unless it's a small house, and it doesn't need ducts. It has one or maybe two air handlers inside that, that deliver the warmed or cooled air, and a compressor outside. And those that can actually sometimes have even a greater efficiency than the larger units. And one thing I'll say one more detail about heat pumps is when you are looking into this for yourselves, go for ones that have at least two-stage, meaning that when it doesn't need to go full force, it will go about 70% and be more efficient there because of that. And there are other ones that are continuously variable in their capacity and will only cool to the extent needed, and those are even higher efficiency. Those are typically more of the mini split type, the ductless ones.
Duane, at what point does it really become energetic?
You just muted yourself. At what point does it become?
I did. Energetically cheaper to give up a furnace that you've already bought or an AC you've already bought and replace it with.
Yeah, that's
because there's a lot of material. There's a lot of
yes, that's true. And there's so many factors that go into that I would just it's a matter for discernment, and maybe talking with people who would help you. That might include contractors, might include keeping your eye out for a system that meets your needs when it's available or when you have time available to deal with the situation. There's a lot that can go into that. And yeah, it's a tough thing. Sometimes it's just rely on your intuition or your best education on it. I can't really pin down an answer to that one.
Okay, maybe TEP has some people.
But the idea of getting it while kind of choosing the time when you're going to deal with it is probably going to make it a lot more likely that you'll put in a system that meets your needs and is sustainable, because you're not in that emergency mode and saying, I'll take whatever you have in the warehouse right now.
Right. Yeah, I think, and Carol made a comment to be sure to include the earth in our future when we figure out the time. What I'm wondering is, it's like buying a new car. If you've got a car that's 4 years old and it's pretty efficient, but it's not the most efficient car of them all. When is it time to give that up? Because there's already energy embedded into the making of that thing. That I've heard that most of the energy that's in a car is the embedded energy, not the stuff that it burns. So no, Robert's shaking his head. Okay. All right, Stephen.
Well, I know this is a little off topic, but why is there not being an effort made to turn gas cars into electric cars?
People do that.
Yeah, I've seen it, but it's very limited, very high price.
But there are more, I forget what they call them, but there are more sort of packages available to insert as a motor for a vehicle when you're making it from. Go ahead, Ben.
Just commenting on that, just the layout of the car with a big internal combustion engine up front, gas tank in the back, and just a drive shaft running through the floor. Most battery electric cars that are purpose-built have the batteries in the floor, and many conversions that I've seen, some of them are quite elegant, but you end up usually taking up the entire trunk or the back seat with batteries. Steve Conley was here. He's a guy that's converted a lot of cars, and he could speak to greater authority on this than I can, but it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it's not as feasible as it seems off the top of your head.
Exactly.
Steve, would you like to comment?
Steve there? If not, I would just say the same thing is true of e-bikes. You know, you can make an e-bike out of a regular bike by putting an electric motor on it, but the purpose-built e-bike has a lot of benefits. It's structured for that, and it works a lot better over the long haul. And I did want to include e-bikes in there and say that if you're not ready to buy an EV, like we're still getting there, an e-bike is a great way to get around town all year long in Tucson. You get that wind cooling effect. It's really great.
I
Yeah,
created
but you got all those big automobiles.
Sorry, Steve?
Yeah, yeah, it's more of a hot rodding type venture to convert a ICE vehicle to electric. The production made electrics are much better.
Okay, I think our last question will be from Kevin.
Duane, I'm, as you know, I'm from the Midwest. I'm kind of a recent transplant to Tucson, but what I noticed in the Midwest is we're beginning to see groups evolving to oppose the construction of community-based solar projects. And I've also read where if we want to really take advantage of renewables, we're going to have to build out the grid, the electric grid. And again, in the Midwest, I've seen battles over these high capacity transmission lines in Missouri and Iowa and even parts of Illinois. And I'm just wondering, is that something we need to be sort of clued into and figuring out, because there seems to be some backlash against renewables and the transmission lines that we're going to need to make it more available across the country.
Yeah, there's a number of dimensions to that. I'll address a couple of them. One would be, let's make our demands more modest on terms of the energy we expect to use. And that way we won't have to require as many of those uncomfortable situations, as many, still some. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that the energy transformation is definitely going to require the participation and cooperation of what we are now calling utilities, and we'll continue to call them utilities. Electric utilities will have a role that they are still coming to terms with. It's going to be a much different role from their current role. And but it's very important, maybe as important as all the stuff that we do to get solar in place, and because there are lots of balancing tricks to making a grid work on a high degree of renewable energy. It is, when they say that, it's not just because they don't want it. It's because it's true that when you produce energy, you need to use that energy right then. That's the truth. Utilities can turn on a gas plant at will, turn it off at will, slow it down, and they can put exactly as much energy as we're demanding at every moment. That's harder to do with solar. It's a little easier with wind, but solar, it's a big challenge, and we need to respect that and ask them, or really, yeah, I mean, we have to have them figure out how we're going to make that work. It's not something that a layperson can easily figure out. We need their expertise, and we need to call on them to say, I understand there's a cost to doing this, but we need it. So let's not get in a anti-utility mode with our energy activism.
Thank you, Duane. I think we could go on a long time, but I'd like to keep us to the clock and end this part with an acknowledgement for all of the work you're doing with your hands as well as with your eyes and your writing to communicate the value of these alternative energy ideas. And I'm hoping that each of us got at least one good idea tonight, or got to share one good idea. I know a lot of you put a lot of interesting things. If you haven't seen the chat, it's quite a compendium of references. I've copied virtually all of them. And if you'd like to just get those particular pieces, just put a little note in the chat to me, and I'll be glad to send it to you by email. And Duane can be found at the Electrify Tucson committee meetings. And when is your next meeting, Duane?
Electrify Tucson is not the name of the working group. It's just energy transformation.
Okay.
We do not have a regular schedule at this time, but I would like to establish one. So if you have an interest And then if you contact me now, I actually do expect to get a regular meeting time set up. So now is the time to reach me and let me know when it works for you. And we'll start something. We'll start something probably on a monthly basis, maybe a little bit different when we're starting out.
Great. Looking forward to hearing about more doings of this group. So let's just shift gears a little bit, or shift focus a bit. David Eisenberg is going to describe a little bit about the background of Sustainable Tucson, where we're going. David, by the way, is the founder and director of the Development Center for Appropriate Technology, and has a long history of working with sustainable building materials and teaching people about sustainable building technologies and techniques. We're really glad to have David on the board of Sustainable Tucson as well.
Thank you, Stuart. And thanks, Duane, for that presentation. And you know, we, in talking about this meeting and what the topics might be beyond Duane's presentation, we thought it might be really wonderful to actually share some things that we can celebrate. Things that have happened in this past year, things that we're looking forward to in the coming year, et cetera. And I wanted to share a few things about Sustainable Tucson, actually, and what has happened. Some of you may know that Sustainable Tucson was started as a project of a nonprofit called Nest Inc. I was one of the founders and a board member of Nest for a couple of decades. So has Trace, involved with Nest. And Nest served as a fiscal sponsor for a lot of organizations and a lot of activities and groups around the city over many years. We were the fiscal sponsor for the Tucson 2030 district, for Sustainable Tucson, for a bunch of other entities. And about a little over a year ago, we decided to basically close down Nest. But it's a 501c3. One of the things you have to do for a nonprofit is actually transfer your assets to another nonprofit. And we decided that Sustainable Tucson should take over Nest's 501c3, and that we would basically sort of morph Nest into the next sort of generation of Sustainable Tucson. And one of the things that we can celebrate right now is that the process of making that transformation, dealing with IRS, dealing with the Corporation Commission, et cetera, has just actually, we've just gotten the last piece of that transformation, which is that on the IRS website, it now lists Sustainable Tucson as the official holder of that 501c3 status. And so that transformation, which Dan Stormont, Paula, me, and a variety of other people spent a lot of time working through all the requirements to make that change happen. But it's happened. And now Sustainable Tucson is its own full-fledged 501c3 nonprofit, which enables us to do more things. And one of the things we're hoping to do is actually expand our capacity, our fundraising ability, and our board. And we're really looking in the coming year to create a larger, more inclusive and diverse board of directors for Sustainable Tucson. And part of the reason for that is we know that to take on the various things we're trying to do, we've been operating with a really small board. I volunteered to for continuity to stay on the, to move from the NEST Board of Directors onto the Sustainable Tucson Board of Directors. But there have basically been 5 of us, and there's a lot to manage in the range of things that we are doing and the things we're hoping to do going forward. So we know we need a bigger, more diverse board of directors to carry the work forward and to help guide the things that we do. So that's a thing to celebrate, both looking backwards and looking forwards into the new year of things that we're going to do. I also wanted to share something I actually shared in a meeting a week or so ago, which is a lesson that I learned. Stuart mentioned the Development Center for Appropriate Technology, DCAT. We're coming up on 30 years. I co-founded that nonprofit. Over many years, I observed something that is common to people who do aspirational work. Work where you're out trying to change the world or improve something. And that is that often what we do is we're looking at a situation, the norm is here, we see something that we're trying to achieve that's up here, we do a project, we put a program together, we do something, and typically what happens is we end up somewhere in the middle. And our experience of those projects or those efforts tends to be in the gap between where we were aiming and where we ended up, not in what we actually achieved. And unless you actually kind of develop a process of formally looking at what you've accomplished, you don't really have to focus on what you didn't accomplish, because it sort of lives within us, I think, for most of us who do this kind of work. But if you pay attention to the things that you actually achieved, some of which can be things that didn't work out, lessons that you learned, missing things that kept you from achieving your goals, etc. Those learning, those lessons, those are actually accomplishments as well. And if you in fact develop the sort of habit of looking at what you've actually achieved and acknowledging it and celebrating it, that's where you can regain some of that energy that you've invested in the work and carry that forward into the next effort, the next project or program that you do. And it took years to sort of understand how the sort of serial mini failures, that are embedded in our projects kind of drain you and lead to burnout, and how powerful it is to actually take the time to acknowledge the accomplishments and achievements and celebrate them. I just wanted to share that with all of you, because I know probably everybody who's in this meeting on this call, has some aspect of their lives where they're experiencing that. And I think we can all help each other move forward with more energy and a better outlook.
Thank you, David. Maybe this would be a good time then to introduce one of our activists who's got a report to give. Rocky, are you ready, or do you want to be second in line?
I don't know. I feel like I'd like to be second in line just because I don't know exactly what I'm presenting on.
Yeah, we have a video from the Repair Cafe. So
yeah, let's play that first.
But maybe we can have a verbal presentation and intersperse the videos between a couple of verbal ones.
That the Repair Cafe is part of the Zero Waste Working Group, so I could lay the foundation, and then we can go to the video, and Rocky can pick up the loose ends.
Sounds good.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Green, and I'm co-chair of the Zero Waste Working Group for Sustainable Tucson. And I was going to provide an update on 3 projects. First was the Repair Cafe, the Tucson Repair Cafe initiative, which is being led by Rocky and Stephen Menke, and they're doing a great job. The Repair Cafe is a community meeting space where people can bring broken items from home, learn how to repair things, and extend the useful life of products, which is good because that means we're sending less waste to the landfill. The Repair Cafe just hosted its second major repair event on Saturday at Zero Craft, and people brought in furniture and electronics, lamps, and other items to get some assistance and learn how to repair. And we're going to see a video on that event. And Rocky and Stephen are planning a third event in January, and we're also working to find a permanent space and raise funds to support the project. The second thing I wanted to talk about was is our reusable container project. We just finished drafting a survey, and this was done again by Rocky and Stephen, that we plan to send to local restaurants to gauge their interest on the use of reusable containers for takeout meals. And the survey's up on the Sustainable Tucson Zero Waste page. But I have to admit, our page, we're in the process of having to update that page, but it's there. You can access it there. We plan to work with business and restaurant groups in the community to publicize the reusable container survey and get their feedback, find out the interest levels. And so if you know of any, and we're going to actually knock on some doors, Rocky and Stephen want to knock on some doors and going to get some assistance from Barb Reuter. But so if you know of a restaurant that we should contact, or if you perhaps want to contact on our behalf, let me know at my email is kevin@sustainabletucson.org. And the final project I want to mention is the City of Tucson's Zero Waste Planning Initiative. The mayor and the city council in September gave Tucson Environmental and General Services the green light to prepare a zero waste plan for the community to convert the Los Reales landfill into a sustainability campus. And actually the TEGS has a roadmap that they want to follow. We've provided comments to both the mayor's office and TEGS outlining ways to enhance that planning process. We recommended that the primary focus of the zero waste plan be placed on what we call upstream, rethink, redesign, reuse, recycle, reduce, and compost strategies that have the potential to help the community achieve deep cuts in waste generation and resource consumption. We also recommended that the planning process be made more inclusive and transparent. And then finally, we pointed out that waste to energy technologies like combustion and plastic to fuel have no place in a zero waste plan. When you burn or heat something, it can't be used again. And waste to energy systems, fortunately, they support the linear economy model by extracting virgin materials only to waste them at the end. So that's something we've tried to raise some concerns there that the city doesn't go down that pathway as it develops its zero waste plan.
Are we ready for the video?
Yeah, just want to say thank you, Kevin, for that, and Stephen for your part in all of this effort, and Rocky. Rocky, we're going to watch your video now, I think.
Yeah, I'm being silly at the beginning, but enjoy.
Am I sharing? Do you see the picture?
Yes. Hi, this is Rocky coming to you live from the Tucson Repair Cafe.
A repair cafe is the idea that people can learn how to fix their own things and reuse them for longer periods of time, rather than just throwing away and buying new ones. That way we help our environment and teach people some skills that they can use for their everyday life. We've been mainly getting started up, but we have fixed some electronic and electric appliances. We've done some furniture repair. some tool repair, and we've generally had a number of people that I think are fairly excited about getting involved in not only bringing their things and learning how to do things, but in learning how to become part of the Repair Cafe and keep it going.
It's been going pretty well. I think that it'll be more successful once people know that we exist as a resource to help repair items. And once we have those people and have more repairs, we can do a lot more. If you'd like to get involved, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Tucson Repair Cafe, and email us at tucsonrepaircafe@gmail.com so we can get you all of the things to get started. We have lots of things that we need help doing, such as running our social media, planning more events, reaching out to nonprofits, and repairing items at the events.
All right. Yeah.
Thanks. I made that very quickly the day after the event, so just to get it to everyone. So yeah, we didn't say the date in the thing because we haven't decided, but we are planning on doing events every second Saturday of the month. So that means the next one will be on the 8th of January. I don't think that we're going to hold one sooner than that, just because it's Christmas and there's a lot going on. So yeah, so the 8th of January. And then I made a whole list of the types of volunteers that we want, and I'll just give you we haven't finalized this list, but just to give you a general idea, if you want to help get involved, we're looking for social media and marketing managers, partnership coordinators, is what we're calling them, people who reach out and talk to places to partner with that we can host events at. We'd like to create a university group on campus for the U of A. We need event coordinators, so people who are like helping us, create the events and coordinate volunteers. We need help. We need website creators and managers, so like someone who can help me create the website that is like our own separate website, and then upkeep it. That will probably be a very easy task, which is just like keeping the Google Calendar updated. Some legal advice, like we need like to know about liability waivers, and then the special projects team, which is the one that I'm most excited about, which is we have a lot of like nonprofits interested in like receiving donations from us. We have people in the community who are interested in donating to us, and then there's also donations from thrift stores that can't sell broken items, that they could just give it to us, and then we could either pass it on to another nonprofit or sell it for our own funding our own projects. So there's all those really cool things happening. If you email us, if you are not on the email list and you want to get that email, I haven't sent it out yet. It'll be going out very soon. So just email tucsonrepaircafe@gmail.com and I'll get you that. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rocky. Thanks for all that energy. We're going to not forget that. Danielle, I see you come. How about we have one more person, and then you can share with us about the charitable and faith-based sustainability committee. So I will report very briefly. Robin couldn't make it tonight. She is the chair of the Habitat Restoration Committee, and the purpose is to infuse more regenerative agriculture and regenerative horticulture and regenerative landscape management thinking and actions into the city and the neighborhoods. The current projects, there's one in Sugar Hill neighborhood, another one in Sam Hughes neighborhood, and both involve pollinator gardens, definitely some rainwater capture. And she's got a close alliance with toxin-free Pima County, so we've been working on advising the city Parks and Recreation Department on how to start moving into turf management that doesn't require toxic herbicides. At Himmel Park, there's been quite a plague of goathead weed and some other things. And we had, through the neighborhood association, there were scores of people putting in probably thousands of volunteer hours, ultimately pulling those weeds out by hand and still not really getting on top of it. And so they finally did some pre-emergent treatment for this coming season. We all wept a silent tear, but they are doing a small pilot trial section where they're using an organic treatment to see if that can be as good at keeping those weeds down. So that would be an example of what David talked about. We didn't get to the top of the mountain, but we got to the foothills, and we're celebrating that. Okay, and if you'd like to know more about that, Robin's got the same kind of email address, robin@sustainabletucson.org. Robin, ROBIN. Okay, Danielle, are you ready?
How about I share Danielle's video that she made first? And then
Great idea.
There's more. Okay.
Okay, yeah, watching the clock, it's 7:18, so.
All right, let's see
Keep going.
here. Share screen. I was not prepared.
Hello, my name is Danielle Corbett, and I am the Committee Chair for Sustainable Tucson's Charitable and Faith-Based Sustainability Committee. Yes, we are the new kids on the block, but hopefully, by the end of this video, you will know more about us. Our committee helps places of worship and nonprofits beautify their campus and become better stewards of the earth. We encourage our mission of sustainability through education, outreach, and conservation. Once a nonprofit or a place of worship understands its energy footprint through our free or low-cost assessments, the next step is leading them to well-established local resources as a way to focus their own sustainability endeavors. Some of the projects we've done within the past year include: we hosted a two-part climate listening session with the City of Tucson for the faith-based community here. Our committee debuted at the 2021 Arizona Water Association Conference. We acquired a $5,000 grant to help build a garden at the Kadain Merit Eritrean Orthodox Tewahedo Church. And lastly, we're helping Mission Church further their environmental education with their enrollment in Local First Scale Up and applying for Tucson Clean and Beautiful Green Stormwater Infrastructure. All in all, if you like to be active in the community, share some of your natural talents, and have a sincere desire to serve, then you can reach me at Danielle@sustainabletucson.org. It was wonderful meeting you all, and have a great evening.
That's amazing, Danielle.
Hi.
You looked almost real there on that video.
I try to. So how's everyone doing tonight?
We're having a good time. Duane gave a great talk. And Ben
Awesome.
and Robert and other people gave some wonderful comments too, Bruce and etc. So we're just closing in on the end here. Let's see. I'd like to tell you just in 1 or 2 minutes about the Sustainable Ambassadors. We had 2 cohorts this year. About a dozen people completed each time. We had 12 weeks of Saturday mornings where we had wonderful speakers such as Duane and David, but also folks from UA, like Kathy Jacobs from the Center for Climate Change Adaptation and Solutions, and Mark Keir from the School of Geography, and on and on. Sandy Barr from the Sierra Club. So we looked at specific content issues. We also, though, looked at advocacy at the state level. We also looked at communication skills that can help us be effective as advocates, as educators, as colleagues. Bonnie Colby from UA gave us a great workshop on nervous system tuning to be more relaxed and present with people, to create a calm environment in which we can have conversations about important topics. And we will continue next summer. Kevin and I have been the facilitator, co-facilitator for this program. It's been a lot of fun, and a number of these people have gotten engaged in some of these projects that we're hearing about tonight. So mark your calendar for summer of 2022 for maybe a dozen Saturday mornings when we'll have Sustainable Tucson Ambassador training.
Stuart, I think you need someone to put a little fire in that. You've put a huge amount of investment in getting a wonderful presenters, very well facilitated. The people that have come through the ambassador training are fully equipped to speak on a whole range of sustainability issues. And it's a huge time investment, but one that is reflected in a great growth of them as they go through this process. It's growing our organizational capacity to get things done and our city's ability to live sustainably. So I would just highly recommend anybody consider that for yourselves, or if you know someone that has something in them can grow in the sustainability area, they might be interested. So keep an eye out for when that's going to start again in the summer. Was it spring, summer, fall?
Summer. Thank you, Duane, for the endorsement. You gave it all the oomph I think we need. And I'd like to point out Janice Siegel is here this evening, as she is at most monthly meetings. She was, as I recall, the birth mother of this idea. And she planted the seed of thought about Sustainable Tucson ambassadors. And Jana has also put into the chat that if you'd like to get calls to action, writing letters on behalf of environmental issues, sustainability for our region as well as for our city, it's there in the chat, Jana, Jana, at sustainabletucson.org. Jana, did you want to add a word or two to that, or are we good?
I don't have a lot to say. It's just generally, you won't get a lot of extra calls to action. They all have to do with the environment. And when the state legislature comes back in session, I send out calls to action, that relate particularly to things that we would be interested in, and kind of where we go over what the Sierra Club recommends, and we double check it, and then I send that out to the email group. So it's a little shorter than what you get from the Sierra Club. And if anybody has any calls to action, they can email them to me. It would be helpful for me if they were already written up as a call to action, so that I don't have to do that effort, but I can send them out to our email list of, I'd say there's a couple hundred people on it that are on the advocacy email list. And I also, if it's something to do with social justice issues, I can also post it on Desktop Activist Tucson.
Thank you, Jana. So,
Trace, could I step in for a moment before Trace?
Yeah.
I would like to just, this is a little bit outside of Sustainable Tucson's ambit, but we encompass all kinds of community activity. So I wanted to give Garrett Weaver or Joe Sillens a chance just to share a contact if somebody wants to be involved in the Energy Choice Tucson movement for community choice energy. You don't need to go into detail, but if you can make sure that people know how to reach you if they want to, that would be great. One of you, please.
Absolutely. Thank you for the mention, Duane. Yeah, so I'm gonna put my email in the chat box, and Neil, if you want to, or sorry, Joe, if you want to put your email in the chat box as well, you're welcome to. But yeah, if anyone is interested in bringing more renewable energy to Southern Arizona, we're running a petition campaign, and we're trying to summon support so that we can reach out to our elected officials and tell them that this is a tool we can use in our toolbox. So thank you.
Thank you both for that effort. Trace, were you going to tell us about the Building Resilience Building Community?
Yeah, I'm gonna just make a brief statement here, and that's to describe what the Building Resilience by Building Community group is. At the moment, Stephen and I are the two primary people, but it's the goal of building resilience is to develop ways to help groups of neighbors to build a strong sense of community by working together on projects to improve their neighborhoods. We want to encourage people to work with others to expand our collective capacity to inspire and enable grassroots action. We have a basic project called Resilient Tucson, and its objective is to help neighborhood champions to learn how to gather their neighbors, select projects, and work together to make them happen. Our hope is that this will become a core piece of empowering Tucsonans to act at the lowest grassroots level. We do need help. We're recruiting mentors who are people who have already gone through some of these projects and done things and would be willing to advise someone who is daring enough to take it on. And we're looking for neighborhood champions who are the people who are actually willing to gather their neighbors together and figure out something they want to do. And of course, we're looking for other people to join the committee so we can put this all together. So if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. You can contact me at Trace at sustainabletucson.org.
And Trace, if I understand right, that could be something as simple as having a block party and just getting together with your neighbors, a chance to meet each other and trust each other and build a kind of a groundwork for resiliency.
Important, Duane. There's a variety of approaches that people have done, and they range from a neighborhood cleanup to a porch party to some groups have actually created little neighbors helping elderly neighbors groups, so that if you got a neighbor who can't make it to the store or something, a neighbor will lend a hand. So there's a wide variety of things, and we're looking for people to help us organize that.
Reminds me of one of the answers that Joanna Macy gave to people who are worried and wondering what to do as we try this slow motion act of the great turning away from the great unraveling. And she said, one of the things that we can remember to do is to link arms. So that's Trace's vision here, linking arms in our neighborhoods. I think Paula might like to say something about the festival, and if that's true, while she's getting ready, last call to anyone else who'd like to announce something or just give a little celebration of something that they observed or did that was heartening for sustainability in Tucson. And just put it in the chat or raise your hand so I won't miss you after Paula.
Well, very briefly, I'd like to say, mark your calendars for April 23rd. It will be the Earth Day celebration. We had to, with a lot of concerns about health and safety, postponed Envision Tucson Sustainable Festival from the fall, but we have the great opportunity of partnering with the Children's Museum who are the folks that put on Tucson Earth Day down at the Children's Museum and in Armory Park. And we will be infusing that with a whole lot more sustainability concerns and sustainability actors from our community, organizations and companies that have participated with us at the festival in the past. We're hoping to have a really good, strong, sustainable Tucson presence with all of these committees and projects going on. And if you are interested in helping with that, you can contact me at paula@sustainabletucson.org, and keep an eye out for information from the Children's Museum about Earth Day, April 23rd.
Thank you, Paula. Ben, did you raise your hand? No. Okay. Yes, read Electrify. That'll be our Christmas reading. We couldn't hear you because you were muted, Ben.
How about now?
Okay, you're good.
I'm sorry. The book that Bruce is going to take back to the library tomorrow, Electrify, Sal Griffith, is a marvelous read. And while I was getting that, one of the other people that's over at Rewiring America, Leah Stokes, wrote a marvelous book about energy policy called Short Circuiting Policy. There's an entire chapter in here about Arizona and what's gone on here since the late 1990s. And even though I saw it appear in the headlines over a 20-some-odd year period, I learned so much from reading this book. So those are a couple that you can get.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight, for listening, for sharing, for asking, and especially for caring.